We're here today with Tish Jennings, professor at the Curry School of Education at the University of Virginia, and one of the leaders in bringing mindfulness and social and emotional learning into the classroom to benefit students and teachers. Welcome, Tish. Tell us what's in the forefront of your work nowadays.
Hi, Jim. Great to be here today. Well, I have some exciting news because we're about to publish a paper that will report that mindfulness plus emotion skills training not only supports teachers' well-being and their resilience and their ability to handle the challenges of the classroom, but improves the quality of their classroom relationships. So, for example, when teachers were observed who received the Care for Teachers program, their classrooms were more positive emotionally, the teachers were more sensitive, and the students were more productive compared to the control group in our randomized control trial. So this is really exciting news for the field. Not only does it show evidence that the Care for Teachers program has the ability to improve teachers in classrooms, but it's a proof of concept because it basically is showing that mindfulness can have long-term, but also downstream effects on the environments where people are working. And I think that's really exciting news. We also have data from that study showing long-term effects, but we're not publishing that right away. We're still analyzing those data. And then finally, we have 5,000 students in this sample that we're analyzing their data. So the next step is showing not only do these effects on the teachers last, but they actually have effects on their students. We're hoping that we'll be able to show that. So this study is really going to be a landmark, and it should be coming out in the new year at some point or another. Very exciting news. The other thing that I'm working on that's very exciting is the Compassionate Schools Project. We're reinventing health education and integrating mindfulness, social emotional learning, nutrition, and postures that come from yoga to create a holistic and child-centered health curriculum, the health and PE curriculum that we will be testing in Louisville, Kentucky.
That is very exciting. So looking forward to 2016, what do you see focusing on in your work? And then more broadly, are there any things emerging in the field of mindfulness and education that you'd like our audience to know about?
Yes, there's a lot of work we still have to do in education. One thing that we don't know anything about and that I hope we'll be able to start exploring is what's the development of mindfulness? A lot of my colleagues ask me sometimes, when do we stop being mindful? Like maybe we're mindful as children and then we become less mindful and then we have to rediscover mindfulness. We don't know anything about that. And I would imagine that how infants and toddlers experience what we might call mindfulness is not the same thing that we're talking about when we talk about adult mindfulness. But these are questions that need to be explored, and they're very interesting questions. So that's one thing. Another area that I'm really excited to start working in is seeing how mindful awareness practices might be able to help reduce bias, especially when it comes to teachers' tendencies to punish or manage their classrooms in ways that exhibit prejudice against kids of color. So, for example, we now know that teachers do tend to are more overly punitive with students who are African American, Latino. We're not exactly sure why that happens, but we now have a setup here at the Curry School where we can see how that's happening, really looking at the mechanism of how that happens, start to understand it better, and then to try and see if a brief mindfulness intervention might reduce that tendency and help us overcome the disparity in discipline in schools. This is a big problem, and we really know very little about it. We just do know that kids of color are over-disciplined compared to kids that are white. So this is a really exciting place to be working as well. So those are two things that I see on the horizon for the coming year.
Those are two very important areas, and we look forward to future developments, and we'll talk to you again about them in 2016. In the meantime, is there anything more you could imagine Mindful doing to help support your work or the work of mindfulness education in 2016?
I think one of the great benefits of Mindful is that you have been able to disseminate this information in ways that people can really access and understand, and also create a conversation between those of us doing this research and those people in the world that are applying it. And I think over the next year or so, Mindful can help us as researchers explain why secular practices are so important in education, and how and what that means. Like, what does secular mean, and how do we tread that line in the public school setting to be careful not to slip in anything that has any religious or spiritual associations. So that's an area that I'm also very interested in supporting the field of education to understand. And I am also publishing an article about this in the next issue, or in the February issue of the journal Mindfulness. So there's more to come on this conversation.
That's wonderful. Thank you.